Welcome back, everyone. This is Ayad Boudiab, and we are continuing our Angular course. As you have seen in the recent videos, we've been discussing services, and we spent some time on that, and there's some more to come. But in today's discussion, I'd like to take a break from the services and discuss something else, something important to all developers, which is basically what tools would I be working with, right? So you've seen me developing some items in Sublime text, and then the in other cases I've used Visual Studio. Visual Studio comes with its own version of IIS. I'll be able to load the page, especially when we're loading something from the server, and we proceed from that point. But some of you would say, well, I might have Node.js and I created some server in there and I need to use that server to do my work. So as you can see, every developer will have his or her own development tools, and there's something they prefer, right? So in the case of developing Angular applications, we all come down to one general understanding, is that when I need to develop something related to Angular, especially if I'm trying to learn Angular, I need the minimum amount of tools possible, right? I don't want to develop a server and do this and do that and do the other piece and the other just to learn Angular. I want to concentrate specifically on Angular, and I can practice with Angular activities, and then that's the part that I want to learn, right? And there's one way to do this, and that way is basically on your browser, just go to Plunker, PLNKR.co, okay? And notice it's plunker.co, not plunker.com, and it's also PLNKR. There's no U in there, okay? So it's not spelled out. So plunker.co. If you go to that page, it would give us the location where we can use our development tool. And in this case, the development tool that you're using, and it says in here, launch the editor, right? So if I click on it, it will take me to a page where I can work with the editor. Now, that's the Plunker editor right there. I can do my Angular work here. I'll be able to preview it, and I'll be able to work with all the details that I want in here. Right now, I'm loading this one with Firefox, but I can preferably load it with Chrome and be able to preview everything in Chrome, like because Angular is part of Google, and we can work with that way. But either way, you have the Plunker displayed for you, and you'll be able to use that as a tool to develop everything that you need, and you'll be able to preview your work here, and you don't have to go to anything else. The nice part about it is that you don't need to download anything, right? You can reference Angular here. You don't need to download and install any tool, right? And all in one place, just by going to plunker.co. Okay, that's what's interesting about it. Now let's learn a few things by just looking at the environment in here and see what's going on, right? I see that there are some HTML that I can work with. It says hello Plunker in here, H1 within the body. On the left hand side, I see something that says files, index.html, readme, script, styles, right? All this on the left hand side here. I can put some description. On the middle, I can see that I can write my code here. So since I'm in index.html, I should be able to type some HTML here. I can go to script.js by clicking on it, and it takes me over to the JavaScript page where I can type some code here as well. I can say something like document.write, and I can say hello. Okay. Now that's pretty much the put semicolon at the end. That's pretty much the place where I can write some script, right? And then there's also, of course, the styles. I can put some CSS over here. So pretty much then what I can see is that on the left hand side I see the location of my files. If you hover over the files, by the way, you can see that there's the X, and if you hover over the X, it says you want to delete this file. Okay, so for example, if I'm not working with README, I can click on the X. It says confirm deletion. You say yes, it's gone, right? And this is the left hand side. This is the place for the code, and on the top in here it says something like beautify your code, right? So if you're writing some code and you need to let's say I'm in here and I create another one, another line, paste it there, another one here, and I have just lines all over the place. I can always click on beautify your code and it will format your code nicely, right? Okay, so that's pretty much how I can make my changes in here. And the other thing is this place for writing my code. Again, this is the HTML and this is the script. Now let's move over to the right hand side. But by the way, before I do so, you can always in here download your Plunker as a zip file, right? If I click on this, it will download my code. It says you want to save it. I can save the file. It's in a plunker.zip, plunk.zip. I can save the file locally. Once I have that file locally, I can use it on my machine to continue my work. So let's take a small scenario. Somebody told me about a new concept in Angular that I want to learn. I don't want to put all that together on my machine. I come to Plunker, do the references that I want, write my code, test it. It's working. It's good. That's what I want. I like this concept. It's interesting. I want to use it in my code. I download that. I get a local zip file that contains all the files that I need. I can experiment with that further, or I can save it within my project and work on it that way. You can always save your work, right? Save the plunk in here. You can save your work, and then you can take the reference to it, and then show it to somebody. Or you see that in here on the top, right? When you save your work, you can always take the URL and load it in a different browser, or can basically share it with somebody else for discussions and such. So that's pretty much what you can do here. You can always of course sign to GitHub and take it from there. You can just place your code on GitHub and continue from that point. Now on the right hand side, I see a few things, right? I see something like something that I can there are popular packages in here that I can use, for example jQuery and Angular and so on, right? Now these packages, that's something I can use, right? If I need to use within my page. For example, in this case in here, I have my HTML. It's only referencing script.js, but if I need angular.js, I can always click on here, add the selected package and its dependencies to your active plunk. If I click that, and as sure enough, you see that being added on here with the script that require angular.js, and here's the rest of the information for the source and so on. That just references that script for Angular. Okay, so now that I have Angular referenced on my page, and then underneath that I have my script.js. This is basically where the script code is, right? And then here's the index page that contain Angular and the script, so I can put my code in there. So that's that as far as choosing what type of packages you want. By the way, you see up here that it's still a little bit displayed that you can always search for other packages. I can always expand the window, and I should be able to see here that you can always search for packages, right? You can say Angular, and that will pretty much, when you click on search, it will give you all the Angular references that you want, and you can click on that and add it over to your page. Okay, but one reason I changed that, because I want to minimize the window so it can fit our window, so we can be able to see the work that we're doing. Okay, so that's that as far as the actual references are concerned. On the right hand side, I see find the external libraries. That's what you need to search for. You can always click on that and it disappears, right? And there's also some other information, for example, code linting. That's just pretty much for finding issues within your code. And there's also editor options, with some options that I can say change as far as this editor is concerned. Now the editor options are as follows. First, for example, I can always change the theme, right? So in this case, it's TextMate. I can always go down here and select a different theme. For example, Tomorrow Night Blue. Okay, that's if you prefer this color, or you can always go with other ones, Twilight, for example, right? So these are different themes for your editor. You can always increase the size. So I want the font size to be 15, so be able to show you the code clearly, right? I can always change that. And the other option is that I can refresh the display, right? So if I need to see the display, I can always refresh it here. So this is 1000 milliseconds, so it's going to refresh every second. It automatically refreshes. You can turn that off, right? And you can always show the code yourself. I mean, refresh the screen yourself. I can do this on the editor here. I should be able to do a live preview of my code, right? So it can always show me the results of my work. And then in here, as you can see, it says that you can always show that in a different preview window. If I click on it, it shows me a different tab where I can see my work. For example, remember the text that I typed hello, it says hello, and then it says hello Plunker from the HTML. This one comes from the JavaScript, this one comes from the HTML, right? So this is one way of doing that. And of course you can always refresh it yourself in here, because we turned off the manual refresh, right? Remember in here when we can say auto refresh, I'm sorry, we turned off the auto refresh. That's what I was going to say. If you turn off the auto refresh, you can always display that here, and you can refresh it manually yourself every time you make changes. So hello Plunker, and then I say test. I don't see anything being displayed here, but if I refresh it myself, then it should say hello Plunker test, right? But if I go into my options in here and make it auto refresh, that will be every second. So if I go over here to display it, it still say hello Plunker test. But if I can take the test out and not do anything, it refreshes within the second, and then the text is gone, right? All right, so that's interesting, right? There's a lot of stuff that we can do with Plunker, and don't forget that you can always display that on a separate window, right? So let's close this. Now, what else? What other changes would I like to make? As far as the code is concerned, I want to see that I can work with Angular, right? For one thing, I already referenced Angular. I did so here by pointing to some source file somewhere out there on the web that contains AngularJS, right? Okay. Well, let's do another thing. Remember the binding that we're talking about in Angular? Okay. So let's say in here I want to do some binding by using the curly braces, right? And I say 2 plus 4. Okay. Remember I referenced Angular, right? Okay, so I say 2 plus 4, and I still remember that I have the auto refresh turned on, right? So I can go to the preview. Unfortunately, the screen is small, size is small. I cannot see the preview. Let's go back to there. I see the preview here, and it says 2 plus 4. But then we thought, well, I added the reference to Angular, right? And Angular should understand the curly braces. It should give me some type of result of 2 plus 4, not just the curly braces, as if it doesn't understand what's going on, right? But don't forget that we need to add the ng app, right? ng app directive that we can put on the page. And now, since I put ngapp and I have the auto refresh, now for the 2 plus 4, it shows me 6. Okay. Now, can I put ngapp somewhere else? Let's see. If I introduce a div in here, right? And let's put a couple of divs, right? Let me copy this guy. Okay, and now I'm going to remove ngapp. Refreshes 2 plus 4 is not working. I go to the body and I say ngapp. Basically, remember what ngapp is, right? It's triggering Angular to take its action and do what it needs to do with the page. So I can put ngapp in the body, and now since this expression is part of the body, it knew how to evaluate it, right? Okay. Now, can I move this within a div? Let's see. I'm going to cut this guy and place it within the second div, and then in the first div in here, by the way, I'm going to remove ngapp, and I go to inside this div and I do ngapp. Okay, I have too many divs in here. Okay, so now it doesn't understand it because the ngapp only applied to this div, right? So I need to make sure that ngapp is actually here. Now it should evaluate to 6. Okay, so as you can see, the Angular, the Plunker editor is very good for you. And again, the nice thing is, all what you need to do is go to plunker.co and start doing your work. You don't have to do download, you don't have to do anything. And once you make your changes, you're happy with your changes, remember that you can always download it locally and work with that zip file after you make all your changes. So it's pretty much your experiment lab, right? That's you just do everything that you need to do with Angular, or maybe experimenting with a new feature, and then save it and or download it and work with it locally. I hope this discussion of Plunker has been helpful to you. I'm going to move to the services in the upcoming videos, so please stay tuned for the rest of the discussions. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Ayad Boudiab, and you take care.